Hi everybody, Adrian Plass here.
Yes, and Bridget, hello.
So, this is number 56.
Yeah.
And where are we?
Wow, we are on holiday. We can hardly believe it, really, can we?
It is amazing. And usually we're in Cornwall, by the way. Usually we get together a few of the emails we've been sent, but we haven't actually got them with us. So we'll have a look at them for next week. But meanwhile, we can't believe we are on holiday.
We are. We're with our daughter and son-in-law and 5-month-old grandson. And one of the things that's really odd, maybe, is that I meet people who I've never met before, and there's a kind of smile. And, I'm on holiday. So am I. This is amazing. This is incredible.
Yeah, is this a reaction to not being on holidays?
Of course it is. And for lots of people, they're still not. But, And as you said, Adrian, we're in Cornwall, which is really special for us.
Well, it's special because our honeymoon happened here nearly 51 years ago. Mm-hmm. And we were terribly young, really. We thought we were very sophisticated, I think.
Did we?
I don't know. Anyway, we arrived.
I don't think we did.
Hitchhiked from London, where we'd stayed the night. And we were armed with John Betjeman's book about Cornwall, which was very inspiring, actually. Almost no money, very little money, and an absolute willingness to be amazed and delighted by Cornwall. And
the first amazement was that we meant to be going to Tintagel, but the train stopped at Padstow very late in the evening, didn't it?
That's right. Did we get a train in the end, then?
That bit, yes.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, we arrived in Padstow. And what did we do then? I remember now.
Well, it was very dark and very quiet, and we had a tent. And that's what we were going to do with our holiday. And we walked along the coastal path.
Yeah, we did. Yeah.
And once we got very tired, we sort of dipped down.
But we were in the half light. I mean,
that's
I think people should understand just how stupid we were. We walked, it must have been nearly a mile along the coastal path with our huge rucksacks.
Yes.
And then we saw a little bit where it seemed to go down a bit.
Yeah.
And we pitched our tents there. And we thought, what is going to happen in the morning?
Had our first marital row, I would imagine, pitching the tent in the dark, but certainly in the morning we woke up and it was magical, wasn't it?
It was one of the most beautiful bays we've ever seen. It really was absolutely fantastic.
Yeah. So it's kind of poignant being back there, but it's also a bit strange. It is, as you said, nearly 51 years, and we were, as you also said, very young. We were able to lug really heavy rucksacks.
We were still in our early 20s, weren't we?
And able to lug very heavy rucksacks and walk quite a long way. And now we are feeling a bit ancient.
Well, certainly my mobility is not very good now. No. And but we have the same curiosity, and we still enjoy many of the same things. And we've been staying near a place called St. Kew, which is Kew, not the letter Q. And there's a wonderful, absolutely wonderful and very ancient church there.
Yeah, talking ancient, it is very ancient. It actually has one of the only totally surviving medieval stained glass windows.
In the North Isle.
Betjeman would have been very happy about that.
It probably was in the book, in his book. Yeah, it's in the North Isle, and we walked up and we could see the window, and it is truly beautiful. If ever you're in St. Kew, go and have a look at St. James Church in Kew.
But it was quite interesting, wasn't it? Arriving at the door, there's this ancient door, and guess what the sign is? Of course, it's that we have to sanitize before we go in.
Yeah, isn't that odd? I mean, a sign of the times, not repent.
No.
Not talk about your sins, not make peace with God, but sanitize.
Yeah, before ye enter.
So that the church can't give you COVID and you can't give the church COVID.
Yeah.
It was a bit of a shock in a funny sort of way. Actually, when we got there, you thought it was shut, didn't you? Because the door wouldn't open. I thought it would open because the door handle turned. I discovered that. And there were two men there, and they were clearly talking about insurance, and we didn't particularly take any notice of them, but we went and sat on the
It did say it was
back
open
row.
for prayer.
Yes,
And we did
yeah.
have some prayers we really wanted to say, coming back to a place that had been part of the very beginning of our marriage journey, and with things on our hearts and heads. And these two men were talking quite loudly about insurance policies.
Well,
is that a sign of the time? I don't know.
Maybe that's how it should be. All the work has to go. I think one was a verger and the other was the insurance agent. And then the verger left, and that left the insurance agent. He was sitting just back from this wonderful window we were talking about, writing stuff down. Before the verger went, he said to us, "Are you happy?"
Yes, he did. It was quite
annoying,
to be honest.
I said, "Well, that's a rather large question." And he said, "Well, yes." Well, I said, "What about you? Are you happy?" And he said, "Well, about the same. I'm not sure, Red, anyway." That was a ridiculous conversation.
In-depth conversation.
And then there was the insurance man, looking very like an insurance man, wasn't he?
Well,
and I said to him, I said, "Can I just ask you a question? Do you have a policy that will ensure that I get into heaven?" And he did laugh.
He did.
And
I walked away quite quickly.
No, he was great. He talked about his wonderful job.
Yeah, he did.
And his job is to go from ancient church to ancient church, not all of them ancient, but a lot of them, in that part of the world, working on insurance issues. And the way he talked was as though something from those places could have soaked into him while he was working there.
Yeah.
So, we love being in there.
Well, we did. And the thing that I love perhaps more than almost anything else is, as we were coming out, I saw a notice which was welcoming people to their services, and it talked about the serious, the funny, the warmth that people, and I thought, yeah, it's still alive, this ancient building. And then I thought, well, maybe that's us. Maybe we are feeling a bit ancient, but maybe we're still alive.
Well, I thought it brought back a bit of, I don't know what to call it, the old Cornwall feeling that we had then. The towns like Padstow were much less crowded then, and there was a feeling of space. Now the place is packed, but it's been a good week, hasn't it, being with our family?
It has. I think it's like a week full of parables, really. I mean, one of them is watching our grandson, who is lying on a mat on his tummy, desperately wanting to get to a toy that is in front of him, and bewildered and frustrated because all he can do is go backwards. And I thought, yeah, that's a parable. You know,
what's the parable? Just explain that to me.
I suppose I mean, you know, that so often we think we can. Why can't we achieve this? Why can't we be more than we are? Why can't we have the thing? And we actually find we're going backwards. And I suppose the other one for us, I know we mentioned last week, didn't we, about our puppy having an operation on her knee and having to be in a cage. Well, just near to where we're staying, there's this wonderful grassy path, isn't there? And the first time I let her off the lead...
Just explain that a minute. Well, because the place we're staying is gloriously green, isn't
it's
it?
So
it's a
green.
mass of trees.
It's so green.
And this path is not... They've mown a flat grassy path right through the undergrowth so that it loops round and comes back again.
And I let her off the lead, and for a moment she almost didn't know what to do, and then a light came into her whole body and she was off. And I thought, okay, I'm going to find a parable in that. You know, there is that moment. It doesn't always last, but when we know we're free, and those moments of joy are really special, aren't they? When it just, everything comes together and you think, yes, it's all true.
Yeah,
yes, it's true.
I think there's been a bit of an impoverishment of those feelings for me over the last few months, to be honest. I'm not saying they weren't there, but when they happen, they are. And I actually went up to watch the dog because Bridget told me about it. And when she was released onto this grass, it's very hard to imagine. I mean, she's a cross between, as you probably know, a Shih Tzu and an Italian Greyhound. But she turns into a little greyhound on those paths, and she goes like a steam train round that path.
Yeah.
And it is truly wonderful to watch. It really is.
Yeah.
We all need a bit of freedom at the moment. I think.
Actually, Yes, I mean, by contrast, we've had to practice with a wheelchair for you, haven't we? Because, as you say, your mobility is pretty awful. And that, talk about freedom, it's the opposite, isn't it? It was difficult.
Well, it is a very practical parable, if you like. I mean, I think it's pretty tough, though I say it myself. I mean, I've always wanted to be independent and physical. And
mentally you are very independent.
Oh, absolutely, yes. I'm
had to put that in. You know.
People who say my brain is intact, you have to watch them very carefully. But the thing about the wheelchair is it's the things I thought were, first of all, it's the shock of losing control of where you're going. You're not the one pushing it. You can turn your wheels a bit, but the person who's got the handles is that one. And then trusting that the person holding the handles, I know your intentions towards me are good, I don't mean that, but wondering if they're strong enough to keep you safe if something goes wrong. And then there's the fact that
the fact is that the person pushing isn't quite strong enough to push you up steep slopes.
Well, that's right. And people looking must have watched these miraculous healings and wonder as I sprang from my chair, took over the chair and pushed it up the slopes.
But that's because is a little exaggeration.
Well, I'll tell you when I did spring. I don't know if I mentioned it last week, but the very first time out in the wheelchair, it fell over backwards.
That's right.
And I was thrown out, and I was so embarrassed and didn't want anyone to help me. And I really did spring to my feet.
You did,
and there was a family watching me and obviously thought something really strange is going on there.
This isn't a parable, but being in a wheelchair, we are experiencing that strange phenomena, aren't we? The first time you were in the wheelchair, it was one of your sons was pushing you.
Yeah.
And to our amazement, somebody said to him, would your father like to know where the disabled toilet is? And
Yes.
Suddenly we're in that world where people almost forget that you're a human being because you're in a chair. But by contrast to that, those words really horrified us. But by contrast, something really nice happened, didn't it, today?
Well, that was today, and it was rather wonderful. Yeah, we went to have breakfast, as we do. We love it, in a cafe where there was a farm shop. And there was a 3-generation family came in, as 3-generation families do, swirling and walking and crying and laughing. And so there was grandparents, there was parents of the kids, and there was little kids. And one of the grandfathers came over to us and said, "Bridget."
Yes.
And obviously recognised Bridget. And then
I panicked.
He turned to me and said, and Adrian.
I only panicked because I hadn't a clue who it was.
Well, neither of us had, but he had a big smile on his face. And I mean, this happens occasionally, and we don't usually talk about it, but I'll tell you why we're talking about it now, because he came over and he said, I met you years ago, and my wife was there at a meeting in Sussex. He said, and he said, your books saved me through a really difficult time in my life. And the reason I say repeat that now is because I really needed that this morning.
You
and
did.
it brought not flowing tears, but a tear to my eyes, because sometimes you just need one more little encouragement that things are still happening.
I love the idea of God thinking, who can I get just to give him that little bit of encouragement? And it is true, isn't it, that sometimes it's us, that we need to have the courage, if we in that situation, to say something, because it is just possible somebody really needs it on that day.
You don't need to say very much either, really.
No. We're talking parables. I'll tell you another one. We twice went to cafes advertising wonderful things, only to find that for various reasons they had no food. And one of them, Adrian, we walked, didn't we, up this long path, sandy path, because somebody wanted a crab sandwich.
Oh, I so wanted
Didn't
a crab
they?
sandwich, I can tell you. I don't know why, because it's Cornwall where there are fish and all that.
Yes.
So, yes.
So what happened when we got there?
Well, we got there and we'd booked a table, hadn't we?
Oh,
and,
that was yes, the first
the day
time.
before we
Yeah.
booked a table.
Yes.
And we got there and we walked in and the person there said, "I'm afraid we're not serving hot food. Is that all right?" And we'd come a long way for this thing.
But it was fine because the cold food looked lovely.
No, that's fine. We'll have something cold. So we sat down, overlooking the bay, it's a perfect position.
Yes.
And then the waitress came and said, "There's no cold food either."
Yes,
And
because
apparently
of the
the fans had broken, and if 2 fans are broken,
and then it happened
the end
again.
of that.
It happened again when you wanted a crab sandwich, and again
Well,
we walked
next day
a long
we went
way.
to a place called Crack Crab, I think it's called.
Right.
And we got there and we went and said, where can we sit? He said, "Well, we're not actually serving anything today." Interestingly, the fans obviously were a mechanical problem, but there's a terrible difficulty in getting staff. We've been told in places down
mainly
here
because
at the
of cost of housing. Parable? I don't know. I think sometimes churches, maybe the church generally, does offer something equivalent to a crab sandwich. Just come.
Yeah.
Just come and everything will be wonderful, amazing. And sometimes maybe our churches don't quite add up to what they said they
For
would.
those who vomit at the very thought of a crab sandwich, will be thinking, "Well, no."
You wanted a crab sandwich. So tell them what happened today.
Today, we decided to hunt down one in Wadebridge,
Yes.
which was near us, and we went to a cafe there. And they said, "Oh no, we're only doing coffee and tiny cakes." So,
having pushed you in this wheelchair.
Yes, I know. But anyway, so we thought, "Well, this is terrible. I thought I've got to have a sandwich."
As people who know you can be obsessional, Adrian.
And my daughter texted us and said, "We're at a cafe called the Old Tea House, and they do amazing
crab
sandwiches." So we picked the phone up and we said, "All right, we'll be with you as soon as we can." And we looked at it and to find out how far away it was. Guess how far away it was? It was 80 yards.
A miracle.
A miracle. No, it wasn't a miracle. So we walked down and walked along and we turned left, and there was our son-in-law and our daughter and our grandson, and also brilliantly crab sandwiches at last and ginger beer.
And that will be heaven.
Well, I think that probably will be heaven. It won't be heaven for everybody.
No, I don't even like crab, but there you go.
Maybe you'll be able to put in your order for what you want before you actually get there. But it is strange. I mean, one of the things that happens when you plan a holiday like this is you picture moments, experiences, emotions, all sorts of things that could happen. In fact, it's as unpredictable and as difficult to negotiate as almost anything else.
That's true. And one of the moments, tiny as it was while we were at the cafe with the tiny cakes. There was a bit of a kerfuffle because a very young baby seagull had fallen off a roof, hadn't it, onto the ground.
Yeah, he was walking around very forlornly.
With a broken wing. There were two reactions, weren't there? There was one man.
One was one we've heard many times before. It was a man, very bluff and, just saying what he thought, I suppose. And he said, "Well, no, they need culling. They don't need healing. They're pests. They need getting rid of." And this
by contrast,
poor thing was on the ground, and these two.
Well, he was walking around, but looking very troubled.
Sad. And his parents kept coming down and sitting by him, and then 2 ladies came out with a bin, with good intent, and got the baby seagull and put him in it, and went off to phone the RSPCA to see if he.
Yeah.
And it reminded me of that picture in our house that I love so much, of the broken down old car by the hedge, that nobody wants now because it doesn't work. And it is my absolute contention that there are no losers. There are not supposed to be any losers in this world.
No unimportant people.
No unimportant
birds.
Yeah.
And a little tiny highlight for me has been watching our grandson having a bath in the sink.
Yes.
Rather a strange, smallish sink, and quite a round little baby. but such a small thing, bringing ludicrous amount of joy to his mum and dad and to us. So it's been a good old mixture. And once we can handle the wheelchair a bit better, then maybe there's some more holidays to come.
Well, we're going to have to work at that. Anyway.
We'd love to hear what's been happening